This is session 3 of 3 of the Language Learning Project. We're excited to share the resources and the training for this last session together. Just from my heart, thank you all for being here. And we've learned right beside you. And thanks for your feedback. I'm going to pass it now to Maria Ceballos Tapia.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. This is our last session. This is our third session of Training of Trainers. My name is Maria Ceballos. I'm a director in the Early Learning Department with Fresno Unified School District. And as always, we want to be able to acknowledge and extend our gratitude to the California Department of Education Early Care Division for the dual language professional grant that Fresno Unified received. Because of their support, we are here and we're able to offer this trainings. We do want to thank Dr. Luis Rios for always being so supportive with us. We also want to thank our presenters. Today, you'll be hearing from Dr. Carola Oliva Olsen, Elizabeth Magruder, Whit Hayslip, Jessica Gutierrez, Ana Arambula, and the Fresno ECE community. So we're very grateful and thankful for these presenters, and we hope you enjoy the session today. I'm going to go ahead and pass it on to Jessica.
Thank you, Maria. So good morning, everyone. I hope you enjoyed the music. I thought I'd give a shout out to our Motown classics. They always get us in the great mood. Estela, I saw you dancing. Thank you for getting us in such a great mood. So I wanted to go over our agenda a little with you so we can see what we're getting up to today. Our session's scheduled from 9 to 12. We'll have a break about halfway through. We're starting off with the song, because as we know, music is the best way to get us going. We'll then go into exploring a little more of our website, pollstrategies.org, but we'll talk about the many uses that we have and its flexibility in using it. Then we'll get into poll and talking about using what we've learned now that we've kind of gone over some key elements of the training sessions, using what we've learned and our next steps for that. We'll discuss some home language support and using those resources, as well as, like Maria said, we'll hear from the field of poll and action. So we'll hear from our Fresno ECE community. We will hear from some practitioners, program leaders, as well as some support staff who supported in the learning settings. We'll then get to reflect on implementation, and Dr. Carola Oliva Olsen and Ana Arambula will present about the dual language learner supports, or the DLS as it'll be referred to. It's a tool that they will show us how to use and what it's used for. Then we'll get into looking ahead and planning our next steps, and we'll get into some closing. As always, please enter your questions and comments in the chat box, and we'll be collecting those. It'll be monitored, and we'll address some of those later on in our session. So Whit, get us started with the song.
Good morning, everyone. And we are to my favorite part of poll, songs and chants. And I have to tell a quick story to everybody about this music this morning that earlier in the week, I don't know if many of you know, but Mary Wilson, who was one of the original Supremes, died. And it made me very sad. I was a huge Supremes fan. So I was teasing Jessica this week that she probably didn't even know who Mary Wilson was. And I think Jessica has shown me this morning with her choice of music that she's very aware. But I've got to tell you that it was Jessica's mom who kept her aware of all of that. So I think we can thank Jessica for this music this morning, but we can definitely thank Jessica's mom for bringing the music to us. So that we're going to sing one of my favorites, and some of you who are when we opened about our toolkit may have heard it. One of my favorites, it's called I Am the Conductor. And that one of the things I want to tell you a quick story about this song. This is a song that has been used a lot in the Fresno Language Project and the Language Learning Project, and people using poll. And a quick story about one of my wonderful sites, the Lighthouse for Children, and they did a whole series of poll and intentional messages about musical instruments, and their families made the most amazing musical instruments out of cardboard. That was an activity that they could do at home, didn't need any special equipment. So in the videos and the poll strategies, if you go to the website, you can see some of those fabulous instruments that the families made for I Am the Conductor. So we're going to sing this together, and you know what goes on in this. I'm gonna sing a line, and then you all can repeat the line after me, but you're conductors, so you've got to get your conductor batons up there because we're going to do it together. So here we go. I am the conductor, I come from early ed. Let's sing it together. I am the conductor, conductor. I come from early ed. I can play. I can play on my piano. On my piano. Blink, 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 blink. Blink, 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 blink. One more time. Here we go. I am the conductor. I come from early ed. I am the conductor. I come from early ed. I can play. I can play on my piano. On my piano. Blink, 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 blink. Blink, 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 blink. Okay, real quick, like you've all got that chat box. I'd like to hear about some different instruments. If you'll type in a different instrument into that chat box. Okay, everybody keep an eye on the chat. Oh, the drum, I love that one. I am the conductor, I come from early ed. I am the conductor. I come from early ed. I can play. I can play on my drum, on my drum. Boom, 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 boom. Blink, 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 blink. Let's do guitar. I am the conductor. I come from early ed. I am the conductor. I come from early ed. I can play. I can play on my guitar. On my guitar. Strum, 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 strum. Boom, 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 boom. Blink, 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 blink. Blink, 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 blink. Now, I've told this story before, but when I do guitar, sometimes kids say to me, that's not how a guitar sounds. And they go like this. So we change it and we go electric guitar. So let's do both the guitar and the electric guitar. Here we go. I am the conductor. I come from early ed. I am the conductor. I come from early ed. I can play. I can play on my electric guitar. On my electric guitar. Strum, 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 strum. Boom, 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 boom. Blink, 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 blink. Blink, 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 blink. Now I know you know, think of all the vocabulary that we just did. Think about order and series, remembering that what order they came in, all kinds of learning that goes on in this song. So Jessica, let's turn it over to you. Come on.
Claro que sí, señor Wade. Y ya saben, cuando lo hacemos en inglés, también lo hacemos en español, porque eso es mi lenguaje, a mi idioma de hogar. Entonces vamos a empezar en español. Yo soy conductora de cuidado de niños. Yo soy conductora de cuidado de niños. Yo puedo tocar con mi piano, Plink, 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 plink. Necesito otros instrumentos. Entonces, por favor, en el chat me pueden agregar unos instrumentos. Las maracas. Las maracas, me encantan. Entonces, vamos a empezar con las maracas. Yo soy conductora de cuidado de niños. Yo soy conductora de cuidado de niños. Yo puedo tocar con mis maracas, Plink, 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 plink. Ahora otra. La flauta. La flauta. A ver, ¿y cómo suena la flauta? Es como una... Así, ¿verdad? Entonces empezamos. Yo soy conductora de cuidado de niños. Yo soy conductora de cuidado de niños. Yo puedo tocar con mi flauta, con mi flauta. Plink, 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 plink. Gracias a todas y a todos para participar conmigo en esta canción. Ahora voy a cambiar a inglés. So now I'm going to start speaking in Spanish. We don't usually code switch that way, but we'll continue in Spanish now. So thank you for participating with us. And again, you can see the difference, the different instruments in English and Spanish and the vocabulary. So thank you for participating with us. Next, we're going to get into the website again and dig into some of those multiple uses for the website. You've all had some time to explore and see all the things that are there. We've been taking in your feedback, and also we've added a couple of things. So I want to show you some different ways that we envision it being used, and also some the new resources that we've added. So I'm now going to take you to the website. One second. All right, so it is pollstrategies.org, and hopefully you can all see that. Yes, you can. So again, this is our main page. We started off with our 3 sections, right? So we've got our toolkit, professional development resources, and that is where all of our videos are stored. We've got the personalized oral languages learning or Poll Strategies demo videos. I saw some of you in the chat saying you were excited to share those with your communities and your staff. And we've added a 4th section that is additional resources in the language learning project. So I'm going to take you there and briefly show you a couple things that are there. So if we click, so this is a tool, and that's the one that we'll be reviewing with Dr. Carola Oliva-Olsen and Ana Arambula later. So they'll be showing you that. And then also we've got some contact information for our language learning project team. So Dr. Lina Espinosa, Dr. Carola Oliva-Olsen, Elizabeth Magruder-Witt, Maria Diana, myself, and Ana. In case you have direct questions for the creators, or if you have like coaching questions that you wanted to ask Ana, or just specific things. So we are here, our contact information is here, and you can reach out to us. And I'm going to take you back now to the main page because I want to show you a couple of different ways that the resources, the professional development resources, can be used. So going into the professional development resources, again, we've got different categories, right? We've got the pre-recorded content with activities that you facilitate. And we've got pre-recorded content and activity demonstrations. So the first way, I'm going to click on content with activity demonstrations. And I'm just going to go into, let's go into session 3. You'll see, right? So we have facilitation. So in this section, you could possibly use these videos, the recorded content and the activity demonstrations, and watch the entire pre-recorded training. If that was something you wanted to do, or if someone missed a training and wasn't able to participate live, you could have them review this training, right? So it has a facilitation, it has content, and it also has breakout activities and sharebacks. So they would get the entire training pre-recorded. So that's one way that you could use it. Now going back, our other section, right? Our activities that you facilitate. That's the other way you could use it, right? You could use, and again, I'm going to go into session 3. You could use just pre-recorded content, and then you as a facilitator, as a trainer, you facilitate the activities in your live session. You facilitate your breakout sessions. So you'd see that that's not going to have that, right? It won't have the recorded breakouts. It won't have the sharebacks, but it does have all the content. So if that's something that you wanted to do, is show the pre-recorded content and facilitate your live breakouts and activities. That's something you could do as well. Now, you could also mix and match if you wanted to. If there was some content that you wanted to share. Say you've gotten comfortable with this, or you've attended pool training before, you've attended our 5 foundational sessions, and you're well versed in it and you feel comfortable sharing this content on your own. There might be portions of the training that you want to present content, and you could do that. One way that you could do that, and I'll go back to show you in our resources, we've got, and I'm going to go to session 3 so we can see PowerPoints, right? So we have the PowerPoints here for you, and you could just download it, and you would have the PowerPoint here for you. So you could choose to present some of this live. So if you wanted to sing the song live, because those are so fun, you could sing the song live. You could present maybe the main components of poll. If you wanted to review those live, you could do that. And then if you wanted to use some of the videos, so I'm going back to the website now, you could use some of the videos. So you could mix and match a little of the content if you want to present some content using your PowerPoint. And again, the PowerPoint has presenter notes. Once you've downloaded it, the presenter notes come up for you. So you could mix and match, use the PowerPoint slides to present the content on your own, and use some pre-recorded videos. So for example, if you wanted to hear from Dr. Linda Espinosa, if you wanted to include that in your presentation, you could do that as well. So you can pick and choose and mix and match. And the fourth way that you could use this is you can just use the PowerPoints on their own. Rather than using the pre-recorded content. Say again, you're well-versed in poll, you feel comfortable and confident in it, and you're saying, you know, I really, in this group, maybe it's a smaller group, maybe you want to present this all live rather than using the pre-recorded content, you could just use the PowerPoints. And again, they have presenter notes once you've downloaded it so that you can see, and you know what, let me show you the presenter notes so that you can see what that looks like. I think it's helpful to see. So you click on this button here and you click direct download. It'll download for you. Come up here and it downloads very quickly. Then you'll click on it. It'll open up and you have all of your presenter notes here, right? So you could present the content on your own if that's something that you chose to do. If you feel comfortable with doing that, that's another way that you could use the resources on the website. So I'm going back to the website now. So those are some different ways that you can use the resources, right? We have this website, it's here for you. There are all these resources for professional development, but please take it, make it your own, and use it how it best meets the needs of the group that you're working with, but also your needs as a trainer. So one more thing I did want to show you is that so I'm going to go back so we can see exactly where we are. So in our professional development resources, you go to pre-recorded content or with activity to facilitate or activity demonstrations, either one. In our resources, for each session, we have added a list of training segments. So I'm going to click on that for just the first session so we can see what that looks like. And again, it'll open up a Dropbox and you can download that. For now, I'm just going to show it to you online. So this is session 1, and this is, again, the pre-recorded content with activities that you facilitate. So it has the link to the website where the session 1 videos are. It tells you the total length of pre-recorded content. So this is how long it would be for just the pre-recorded content, and you would add in however long you are going to allot for your breakout sessions and all your activities and sharebacks. So then it also has the section titles and descriptions, and then each video segment and its length. That way, when you're planning for your facilitation of your sessions, you have all of this handy, and it'll help you really plan out the time and which pieces you want to mix and match and pick and choose. So it's all here for you. And we have one of these for each session, and they are titled List of Training Segments, and you'll find them on each one. They are Word documents, so once you download them, you're able to type in your own notes there, mix and match, and kind of really make it your own so that it best meets, again, your needs as a trainer and facilitator and the needs of your group that you're training. So really, the resources are here for you. And I heard someone say when we were discussing this, it's like a buffet. You go and it's all there for you, and you pick and choose what you want to use and what's going to satisfy what you're kind of personalizing your experience for your group. So that is the website. So again, go in and check it out, explore. Of course, send us any feedback if you think of anything, but try all the different resources and see how you can really personalize it for your group. All right, so we are going to move on now. So now we're going to get into Elizabeth, and she is going to kind of review a little bit of the core elements of POLL that we've learned about and really talk about some key things that we want to keep in mind while we're moving forward with our training. So what have we learned and what's next? What do we do now? So give me 1 second. I'm going to load up our video.
Hi, everyone. So as we...
All right.
Hi, everyone. So as we think about building capacity for POLL implementation, let's first take a look at what we've learned. A reminder that the 3 core elements of POLL, support for the family, the environment, and instruction, when implemented together, enhance the learning experiences of all children, especially dual language learners. So let's look at the first core element. We're reminded that getting to know families is at the very heart of understanding so much about the child and how to appropriately plan for strategic and rich learning experiences. So remember, the Family Languages and Interests interview tool was developed for providers to capture history and information about the child and family, and a way to hold a deeper conversation so that providers are conveying to families they care about the child and want to provide the very best experience for them while in their care. The form was created as a relationship building tool, as an information gathering tool, and as a conversation building tool, so that in conversations with families, the desires and hopes that families have for their children really shines through, and providers can begin to understand what interests the child, how family members might participate with them, and what resources they may need to inform their planning. It will also greatly inform how to continue planning the other core elements of POLL, the environment and instructional supports. Environmental supports should reflect what providers have learned and what they know about the children in their care. The environment has quiet areas and active areas, and it evolves as the children do. So as their interests change, the environment changes as well. Providers have opportunities to facilitate conversations around topics and items of interest. Adults help children practice language skills as they play, as they problem solve, and as they imagine. Adults encourage that dialogue during activities, during dramatic play, during instruction. And adults provide those spaces for one-on-one or individual, small group, or large group sessions. The environment is print rich and it's dynamic, and it represents each and every child. So now let's look at our third core element. The third core element, instructional supports, a reminder here that intentional planning, along with targeted strategy work and integrated throughout the day, is a recipe for effective oral language development. The following instructional supports are strategies that are intentionally integrated in teaching opportunities that providers plan for throughout the day. These are strategies that may not be new to early childhood providers, but when they are used in a very targeted way, repetitively and consistently, they will increase and enhance the oral language skills of all children, and especially the dual language learners. The strategies are anchor text and anchor experiences, the intentional message, songs and chants, and gestures and visual cues. So the 3 core components of POLL, the strategies and the tools, support providers in their planning and implementation. So let's think about what are our immediate next steps in building capacity in our training and our work with providers in the classroom and in their learning settings. So how will you as trainers support POL implementation in your communities after the training? So let's start with identifying some small but immediate strategies that can be implemented right away, so you as a trainer can help providers know where they might start. And it begins with starting small. Also, tapping into existing resources and leaning on each other. So let's look at starting small. What small but impactful things can providers be thinking about as they come out of a training and are ready to get going? So relationships with families, and often we think of getting to know families, that typically happens at the beginning of the school year, or maybe when a family's new to a program. But getting to know families can and should happen on a regular and ongoing basis. So while providers may have already established good relationships with their families, especially at, as we get further into the year, they might consider going back and using the Family Languages and Interests interview tool as a way to ask more specific questions about language, culture, and interests. So this information may deepen their understanding of the child and their needs, and it will also strengthen the connection with the family. So it's never too late to dive into that conversation, and it doesn't have to wait. It's one of the first things that we like to do is to really make sure that providers feel comfortable in having these conversations and really asking those important questions, because it does help ultimately inform how to plan for the environment, their instructional supports, and also to find resources to help, especially with the home language component. So how can we help providers start small when we think about the environment? Look at languages. So when we start small, how will children and families see themselves? Do they see themselves in the environment? Do they see their languages and cultures visible? It starts with small steps. Labeling is a wonderful way to get into beginning to make those shifts and have that really print-rich environment and where children and families see their languages and cultures represented. So you might start or encourage providers to start labeling 1 or 2 areas. Also focus on a book corner. So we find that there are many books that are written in languages of the children, and certainly it's important to display those as well, so children and families have access to those books. Starting small might be to help providers see that families are important, so what they've learned about the family can be communicated in a bulletin board. So you see a photo here where a family, you could pick, providers could pick a family of the week or the month to really share about their interests, what they do together, languages they speak, fun things that they enjoy. And you might ask families to bring in items from home that represent their interests and their cultural heritage. So there are lots of ways to begin to make shifts and encourage providers to be thinking about starting small. Oftentimes out of trainings, we well know there's a great deal of inspiration, and so providers want to go right out and begin to do everything and change everything. And we've certainly heard that feedback in the past, that that motivation is there to integrate all of the POL components at once, but really starting small helps you can refine and define and build as you go, and it's not as overwhelming. So let's look at starting small, what that might be for instructional supports. So in the instructional supports, because there are lots of strategies that fall under selecting anchor texts and experiences and writing intentional messages and creating songs and chants and gestures and cues to go along with those, that's a lot. So I would say that providers might start small by looking at a future unit that they're planning to introduce based on the interests of the child. They could be using their curriculum. They could notice a concept that children are interested in. And so through the lens of POL, how might a provider look at vocabulary and starting there, selecting maybe additional words that aren't showing up in a curricula guide, but are certainly in many of the books or concepts that you're exploring. So providers can begin to think about extending vocabulary, adding to the vocabulary lists, and making sure that children have those concepts in home language. So beginning to find ways to incorporate both the home language vocabulary and English vocabulary through POL strategies. So, and it could also be that starting small for some might be helping or developing a chant or a song. It could be developing an intentional message, but just starting into this concept takes time to build out, and practicing in small ways will really help providers get the hang of it and practice it and begin to add more. The other area to focus on with providers to really help build their capacity and also so that they feel supported is tapping into what exists around them. So our best resources are often our colleagues. So when you're developing and collaborating together, you have maybe staff coming together on a regular basis to look at developing a concept or a unit of study. You can certainly encourage providers to tap into their families. Again, as they're getting to know families, they may have families that are excited to come in to help, or might be able to do things like label at home for them. And it's a wonderful way to encourage that homeschool connection. And also, I would say community members oftentimes are looking for ways to help support early childhood education settings. And so community, and then I would say technology. So especially in terms of language development and concept development in home languages, relying on a variety of resources will help providers feel comfortable as they're moving into POL implementation. And the final thing, lean on each other. So it's really important that we feel connected and that we have support beyond trainings. So I would say that sharing information is the most powerful way to really develop and hone and refine skills. And sometimes you just need someone to share ideas with and get ideas from. So not only will it be important as you train to connect providers and allow them to see themselves as a network and support system for each other, you as trainers will also want to collaborate. And you'll have a contact list, I know, established at the end of this session, but you can begin to connect and share ideas, your own and those of your providers. So you may learn from providers in your trainings about some ideas about how they're practicing some or using some of the POL strategies, and that might be interesting information for your fellow trainers. So I would say that as we wrap up, we know that our primary goal is to help providers use the lens of supporting children on the path to being bilingual proficient. This is our North Star. So to do this takes effort and awareness on our part to build capacity in our communities to strengthen that home language foundation. So let's listen next to some discussion about ways to draw upon resources to support home language and this process.
So now we are going to, as Elizabeth said, get into sharing about home language because we know that in POL, we really focus on home language support and we focus on English language development. So we want to continue working together and figuring out how to do that best for our community as a learning community. So learning about how to use our resources to do that.
Thank you, Jessica. This is our last in the Trainer of Trainers series. And so Elizabeth just talked about some of the things that we want to look at as we move on. What do we want to take with us? Where do we want to start? And I know that one of the areas that we talk a lot about is our goal to create children who are competent bilingual learners. That is, that's what we do. And so we've talked a lot about the POLE strategies. We talk about English language development, but we still have questions about how do we support home language and how do we support bilingualism. So what we want to do now is talk a little bit about that. We want to remember what Dr. Espinosa has always taught us. It's a chant that I love. And she says, 2 is better than 1, and earlier is better than later. So when we talk about languages, 2 is better than 1. Earlier is better than later. And so what we want to leave you with now is just a little discussion about how you go out in your communities, how you can focus, what we need to be thinking about as next steps as we promote that 2 is better than 1. Okay, Carola, can you talk a little bit about that with us?
Thank you, Whit. I'm eager to talk a little bit about the big picture. We want our children to be bilingual and benefit from the advantages of being bilingual, knowing 2 or more languages. But most of all, we want children to feel proud, to love being bilingual. We want the families to treasure the ability to communicate in their home language, which is a language of love. So what is it that we need to think about as we think about our goal towards bilingualism and our work when we go back to interacting with teachers, with educators, programs who have different goals, different language models, are at different levels of implementation of the POLE strategies. If we think about how to promote language development and think about proficiency as our North Star, then there's a lot of things that help us set ourselves and in understanding where we are, what the context is. Because every program, every classroom, every family child care provider home is a unique place at a given time, at a unique time, with children and families who have different goals. And with our understanding and our level of competency really in training others around the POLE strategies. So let's think about, one, what are the goals? Who is this program? What are they thinking about in terms of the long-term transition into other schools in the community? Are there bilingual elementary schools around? What are the community resources? And in those resources, as we think of those other programs that might be there, how are they promoting and supporting the home language? So that there's an understanding of how it all plays together. And also thinking about what languages do I speak, and what languages do the educators speak? And then how do the POLE strategies fit in terms of how I support the educators within that program align? When they don't, if we don't speak the same languages and the children speak other languages, it's going to be a different approach. We're going to have to think about, okay, what are the support systems that need to be thought of, because there will be there's going to be a lot of new effort and new activities to focus on, so that we create those links with the language for the children, for the teachers, and then the program is able to sustain and support the teachers in implementing all of those extra layers of support. So it's not to be intimidated by this. It's all a creative process. It's actually a very important pre-work as we understand the context before we start our trainings and our support with those programs.
Great. Great. Thank you, Carola. So the pre-work in terms of understanding our communities, the context, and how we use all of the resources there. So Elizabeth, earlier you talked about sort of helping us take a memory lane look at the POLE strategies. Taking a lens now, Elizabeth, of creating bilingual learners and home language, what do you think we need to look at in the POLE strategies to do that?
So I think that some of the specific strategies that focus really deeply on home language, they're really embedded in those 3 core components of POLE. So the family, environment, and instructional supports. So the strategies are really designed to help providers support home language and English, really supporting that bilingual, multilingual perspective, whether you speak the language of the child or not. And I know that can be intimidating when you don't really speak the languages of the children, but it really does start with getting to know the families. And so we've talked about this a lot, including the families throughout their child's learning journey in your learning setting. So we spend a lot of time building and maintaining relationships with families, using tools like the Family Languages and Interest Interview to specifically understand the child and family's experiences with language. So you have to know where they're coming from in order to know how to best support them in that learning environment. So, and it isn't just a record, it's a way of building and developing that conversation in an ongoing way, because your families are your very best resources, especially when we're trying to connect what interests the child, their needs around their own language and English. And this really helps you plan, what resources do I need to tap into? Who do I have around me to help me in this effort? And it also helps you to plan for the other 2 components of the environment and instructional supports. So when we think about the environmental supports, the information that you're learning, those supports reflect what you've gathered, that knowledge that you've learned from the child and family. So how the environment is set up should directly relate and connect with their interests, their languages, and cultures. They should see themselves in that learning setting. So materials and pictures and books and learning areas are designed and they're really created with culture and language in mind, and are hopefully co-created with families so that they're included in that process, maybe helping out with labeling items in home languages, bringing in items to share and that have really familial meaning and relevance, and that environment will also shift over time as the children's interests and their growth, frankly, in language evolve. So finally, that 3rd component of POLE, the instructional supports. So this really, really helps us focus in on helping children make meaning in their home language and in English. So whether you speak the language of the child or children or not, using those resources, your staff, family members, a translation tool to learn key words, be able to link those to concepts in the child's home language will help make those concepts concrete. And we talk a lot about exposure to language. Understanding in home language first helps us transition to English, but it also helps us maintain home language. So it isn't just about they've got the concept, now let's focus on English. It's allowing space to have those conversations in home language where children can fully access meaning in that language. That's the first step, so that it goes towards supporting and maintaining home language while introducing and exposing them to English. So the resources that you have, it's really a programmatic approach, as Carola mentioned, in really, really deepening and supporting that true goal of wanting our children to be competent, confident, and proud to be bilingual or multilingual.
Thank you. This has been great, you guys, because Carola, you really talked about the big picture and sort of this whole idea of bilingualism and what we need to look at in terms of our community and our goals. And then Elizabeth, you brought us into some very specific strategies through POLE that can help us look at that. Now we're going to go one more step and really look at those specific providers. And so we have a provider here who's gone through this process with us, Jessica Gutierrez. So Jessica, thinking about home language. Now I'm going to be honest with you. I thought about this as I look at this group, that I am the only monolingual person here in this group. Anna, Elizabeth, Carola, and Jessica are all bilingual in Spanish. And so that, but I'm not. And so that I want to support home language, but I also want to use my bilingual support people that I work with. So Jessica, just talk about some of the challenges, what happens, what goes on site when you're working with children and families.
Absolutely. When I'm listening to Dr. Oliva-Olson and Elizabeth speak, it just brings back that, like Dr. Oliva-Olson said, that creative process, because it really is you're creating your model for your learning setting or your program. And you're doing that based on what you learn about children and families. And it changes based on the children and families in your classroom. It can change over time. It changes based on what's going on in your learning setting. So it really is a creative process. I'm so glad you said that, Dr. Oliva-Olson, because it really is. And having experienced that, I just say to everyone, there will be challenges and there are questions such as, who do I rely on? Like you said, we don't have some that they're monolingual. Some educators are monolingual, some are bilingual. We have some languages that people in the learning setting don't speak. So who can I use as resources? When do I support the home language? When do I use what language? Even if we are bilingual or trilingual, there's still that issue and that challenge of when do I use it? When is the appropriate time? When does it fit best? And how do I do that? How do I support home language, whether it's through a text, through singing a song, through routines, and really all of those different factors? That is how your model becomes generated in your learning setting. So first, as Elizabeth said, you start with your children and families. That family language and interest interview is such an important tool. Starts that conversation so you get to know them. You get to know what languages are represented in your learning setting and language goals, and form that relationship with families. And from there, really considering your daily routines, because that's a lot of time that you can use to support home language, along with, the instructional supports that we built in. And then really, how will you use the language to support the children, whether it's previewing and reviewing concepts or learning some keywords and phrases in the children's home language to greet families or provide that support. And who do you have that speaks that language? So beyond yourself, your other teaching staff or other adults that may be in your learning setting or in your program, or even community resources that you may rely on, and specifically the families themselves that you can rely on for those resources. So really those are the major questions and challenges we've had, or who can I use as my resources? When do I support home language, and how do I do that? And taking all of those into consideration with your children and families are really how you generate your model.
Jessica, I'm so glad the last thing you talked about was the family, because it's one of the things that I've learned so much through this program is including families and letting families know that we want them to be good home language models. So many families have gotten the message that they're supposed to only be speaking English so the child can learn English. And we know they're the best home language models. And so the message that's given, that what Carola talked about, this value of bilingualism, competence and confidence, starts with the family. I cannot tell you the number of stories from our providers about how that has changed families' view of home language. When we let them know how valuable this is, Carola mentioned the fact of how lifelong it's valuable. They do better in high school, they do better in college, they do better in life. When we give that message to families, they become our best home language models. They're there. Okay, Anna, I'm going to give you one that's hard, and Jessica kind of referred to it. But this issue about low incidence languages, that we see that a lot. We know we have hundreds, it's like kids all over with different languages. And so in every classroom or in every program, you're going to come along and it's going to be a language, not Spanish, not English, not Hmong, maybe not Chinese. So which are more of the common languages in California. So that what do you do? Anna, I want to talk about, I know you have a specific example about how this problem solving, this creating together, how some creation was done at one of your sites.
Thank you, Whit. So yes, a lot of you may be working with children and families who speak a low incidence language, and how do you support that is going to look different. And so Dr. Carola Oliva-Olson, Elizabeth, Jessica, and you, Whit, you talked about how important family is, and really that is who your support system is, your families. Your families are the ones that are going to support you in supporting those low incident languages in your programs. And that can look different, as I mentioned. And so one example that I would like to share is there's one program who had an infant whose family spoke the language patois. And so we were wondering, how are we going to support this infant? How are we going to support the family? Although the family also spoke English, we really wanted to value and honor that home language. And so these teachers went above and beyond and reached out to the family, asked the family to record themselves singing the infant's favorite song, and they would play it throughout the day for this infant in their program. They created a welcome sign in their home language, and that was something that just laid a strong foundation, just made this family feel so welcomed in their program. And we talk about this all the time, how important families are to us in our programs. And that is one of the ways that we can support low incidence languages in our programs, is reaching out to families to support us and supporting their home language. Because as Dr. Carola Oliva-Olsen said at the beginning, is language is the language of love. And so in order for us to really do that, we need to build those strong relationships with families so that they can support us, especially when we don't speak their language in our programs.
Anna, I love that example. One of the things I loved, I had never thought about it before, but you talked about that family speaking both English and patois. And so one of the goals we want is to let that family know we want you to maintain both languages. That's a good thing for you. And so that's a message we give. So it really is for that family, and in our program, 2 is better than 1. And I got to tell you, we hear a lot of programs where kids are parents, adults are talking about having lost a language. And so that we really love that story. Carola, we want you to sum up this right now. And so tell us some ideas, what you've heard and where we're going.
Wonderful. And I want to tell you one thing I saw in Educare. They have a sign for parents in the different languages that says, your language is welcomed here. And another one that says, please speak to your child in your home language. So it's an invitation. But sometimes having something in posters or signs or in text reminds us what we think is obvious, but it helps us make it explicit. Right. And I think that's what is very important, that families have a clear sense, an understanding that we're in this together and that we are working towards bilingualism, fully confident and competent and bilinguals. And the end is here for all of you to go. You've been prepared and you've learned a lot of different things throughout these sessions. Now I want you to know that you can do this. Podemos hacerlo. Ustedes pueden, nosotros todos juntos.
As Dr. Oliva-Olsen ended perfectly. Like, you all are going now and you can do this. We all can do this together, and we'll be a support for one another. And in that same vein of support, we really wanted to bring to light voices from practitioners who have experienced the POL foundational training sessions. And so they could share their experiences and their perspective of what was most valuable for them, because you're all going to be working with these practitioners and these providers. So now we'll hear from our providers.
Hi, this is Whit again. And so we're ready to begin, and you're going to learn some wonderful things in this next section, because I have 3 friends with me, and these are 3 wonderful early childhood educators who have been part of the Language Learning Project. And so I want them to talk to you today about their experience. But first, I want them to introduce themselves. So Ramona, will you introduce yourself and tell them what you do?
Yes, my name is Ramona Ruacho, and I'm a home daycare provider. And I take care of kids from 0 to 13 years old.
Whoa, Ramona, you've got the big range. Okay, Maritza.
Yes.
My name is Maritza Ceballos, and I work with preschoolers ages 3 to 5 at the Lighthouse for Children here in Fresno. And I am in the dual language classroom.
Great. And Christina.
Hi, I'm Christina Peck, I'm at the Lighthouse for Children, and I recently moved from the infant room to the young toddler room, ages 18 to 36 months.
Okay, and I've got to tell everyone, I've been in all of their programs and all of their settings, and I love being there. They are all wonderful early childhood educators. So you guys, I want to tell you why we're here today, that we've been doing a Trainer of Trainers series. And these are people all over California who want to learn how to do pole training. So they're going to go back to their communities and they're going to start cohorts like you were part of, and they're going to be training providers, all different kinds of providers in their communities as well. So I want you all to kind of think back here, think sort of back here. And what I want to talk about today is, what are the things that you found most helpful, most important in those training sessions? Because it will really help these people know, what should I be emphasizing? What was most helpful to people that went through the training? And so that we could just go back and forth. So don't worry about it. We're just doing this informally, but try to think, some of the things that you really found helpful or most important parts of those training things. So Maritza, I'm going to start with you. Any ideas?
Yes. I think some of the things that stand out that were most helpful for me with the whole poll strategies was having the anchor text to kind of begin like the study and kind of begin the whole focusing on like, okay, which vocabulary words are we gonna focus on? Which words do we want to have the children learn or expand their vocabulary with? So the anchor text, and then in the vocabulary. Also, and then I really love the songs and chants, because I feel that the children really grasp the vocabulary, the new vocabulary for some of them with the chants.
Good.
We sing it throughout the day, at any part of the day, and they start really using those vocabulary words in their lives.
Yeah, that's good. So Maria, that was really good. So in terms of sort of starting with the anchor text or experience there, and then showing how you can build out of there. Ramona, think back about, what did you really like about the trainings? What just remember?
Well, let me tell you, there were so many. And all of them, they were great. But since I had to pick one, for me personally, it works that labeling. Labeling and different languages and the environment, setting up the environment, thinking about the level of the children's. I already had it, but I implemented better. I implemented more of the age of the kids. Since I have different ages, I have babies, toddlers, school ages. So it was a little bit more hard, but since with the program that I was going to the language project, it helped me a lot because I focused on what I needed in my setting, and the environment I really implemented. So for me, it helped me a lot in labeling, and I see that foundation of the whole daycare setting, right. How it changed of the daycare kids. It was totally different. I see a difference of the kids when I did the changes and labeling everything. It's more, it was.
Ramona, I like what you said, that it wasn't you were labeling your environment before, but this brought a new focus to it. I also love what you said, Ramona, really thinking more about the developmental levels of the different kids you had, and so what you could do with it.
Yes.
That's great.
Yeah.
Christina, think back about the trainings. What were some of the things that you found most helpful or most fun? So go ahead.
Well, I kind of made a list, but I came in on the second year of the trainings. And one thing I really enjoyed was actually meeting, the people behind the development of the program. It was really motivating to see and hear the science behind it. And they called us ambassadors. And I really felt like they were bestowing this, this role on us to go out and, spread the word, and also having access to our coaches. My coach was Anna, and kind of tying into what Ramona said, I was working with the infants, and I wanted to know, how do I take this high-tech intentional practice to infants? And it was actually Anna that told us, well, you can do anchor books, but think of also anchor activities. And for me, that's when it really clicked in that, they need to have learning in the hands. So those had value as anchor activities. And that really set our course for bringing it alive for the young children.
Christina, I really do. I love that. First of all, because I'm going to say you're reinforcing what we've been saying in the training of trainers, and that was you understood the reasons behind it. You heard from some of the originators, and you understood the science behind it and how valuable that is. So that we thought that, but I'm so happy to hear that from you. And when you were working with infants and toddlers, just when you want to talk a little bit, I would love to hear just a little bit more about how Anna and the training helped you in terms of sort of figuring out how to do it with them.
Right. Well, first of all, I mean, she was in the classroom with us, and then she was, part of the actual training center session. So it actually kind of helped build a bridge because she knew what we had heard and been taught. And then she would be in our very classroom with those children. And again, focusing on those anchor activities. She also described the importance of the realia, bringing objects in. We were doing a study of hair with children. I think she even brought us a curling iron in with the cord removed to kind of give us those props because, she could see when the children could handle the props, then they were latching onto the vocabulary. Or if they weren't verbal, like Maritza said, with the chants. I mean, we had one about hats and babies were rocking their body to that hat chant. And I have some of them as toddlers now, and I'll kind of do that tune, and it's like they know it. It's in there.
See, that's terrific in terms of taking the real thing, what's in the hand, and then seeing what they're interested, and then bringing that repetitive vocabulary to it. That really is wonderful. And then Ramona, I want you just to tell us a little bit about some of the things you do around the POLE strategies. I mean, like some of the ways that you've transmitted that or communicated that with families.
Oh yeah. Especially with the class that we were taking, they give us the interview for the parents, and that was very helpful. I was doing it already, but it was like a bridge. We connected with the parents about their backgrounds. And so what I do letters with the parents, and I involve the parents to come to the daycare and interact with the kids when they're off and read books to the kids. So I implement that also with the parents, so the parents can be more involved with the kids. It's not like just taking care of the kids. The kids are learning and
I know too that you've shared a lot of what the POLE strategies are and the songs and chants, the messages with the families in your program.
Yes, and I do it in the different language, the ELS. Yeah, I do that with the kids too. And I do the songs, I do the activities. And then repetition, a lot of repetition with the kids with different ages. And what I have the older kids also come and work with the younger kids because we all family in the daycare. So the older kids can read a book, and we talk about what are we doing with the POLE strategies. Like if we're talking about the farm, we go to the farm, we sing songs for the farm. We have intentional message with the books. Everything gets together. And like I said before, I was doing it, but now it's more intentional, and it's more, I implemented it more, and I feel great. It's a great satisfaction for me to be able to do that.
Okay, and Marisa, I mean, I know you talked about you're in a dual language program. So just talk a little bit about sort of how the POLE strategies have helped you in terms of both those languages.
Yeah, so our program is very unique in the way that we have a 50-50 model in the classroom that I'm in. So the POLE strategies have really helped us to kind of give our program kind of some structure, and like everybody else has mentioned, like giving it more intentionality. So what we do in English, we also do in Spanish. So we also do like the chants in Spanish. We have the intentional messages in Spanish, the vocabulary words in Spanish, the book in Spanish, which sometimes is challenging, but we either translate the book or we find the same book in Spanish so that we can have it in both languages. And we also send the information home to the parents. We send it via Learning Genie every week, the vocabulary, the chant, that way the parents can kind of front load the children with it, especially the Spanish one. That way when they come back on the Monday, the kids have already heard the words or have already know which book we're gonna be focusing on. So we pretty much do both in English and Spanish,
Good.
and using the poll strategies, which has been great for our program.
Christina, I know a lot of times when I visit your center, I walk down that hall and I see easels with big poster boards. Tell us a little bit about those poster boards that people can see as they walk through your center.
Yes, Maritza was reminding me that, those poll boards are a really important way to connect with parents, because the teachers work various shifts or, maybe in or outside the classroom. It's a way that visitors and parents can see, showcased right there. We include all the main parts of the poll, including the intentional message, a chance, usually maybe some piece of work that ties into it. And this is pretty relevant right now, but because parents are not admitted into the center, Barbara has actually had us display all of our poll boards in the lobby so that when parents are signing in and out, they can easily view like a summary of what we're doing.
That is so, okay, I want to talk about that. Okay, they have these poll posters where they have what's going on that week. They have the anchor text, their experience, they've got the songs and chants, the intentional messages, the activities. So that is, and so they're out in front so that because parents are right now with COVID aren't coming back actually into the classroom, it's a way for them to be involved. And I just want to talk to maybe Maritza too. So I know you did distance learning for a while. So how are you doing using poll strategies when you're in the distance learning?
Yes, we continue to do distance learning with some of our children who parents have decided to keep at home still. So we've used pretty much the same strategies that we used in the classroom. When I was working from home, I had my board at home, similar to the one I have here, where it shows my intentional message, my vocabulary, where I put my book for the week or for the project that we're working on. So we would also do that during distance learning. We would select the anchor text depending on what we noticed that the children were talking about during our Zoom meetings or something that they brought up that they were interested in. So we continue to follow their interest and expand it that way through our Zoom meetings. We'll pick the book, the vocabulary, we'll create chants. So we had weekly Zoom meetings that we would, conduct with them. And we would explain, okay, this is the chant for the week. We would sing it, practice. I would do the same thing, send a Learning Genie, the chant, a copy of the chant and the vocabulary. That way the parents had it at home as well. In case they had chance to, practice with them. We would kind of extend our activities with them through Zoom or kind of leave it to the parents if they wanted to do, an activity following the project and then send us pictures of them. And we would talk about, the pictures with the children. So we still continue to do that with some of our children. And
that's great. So you were able to take the poll strategies and apply it to distance learning as well. Ramona, I want to ask you, because I know that one of the things that we really value in this is the fact that we had early childhood educators from different kinds of programs, so that we had school district, we had the Lighthouse, which is a community center, we had Head Start, and we had Family Child. Talk about your experience in having all these different kinds of professionals.
Oh my God, it was awesome. It was really excited, and I learned from them so much. Like they say that they learn from me, but I was like, I'm a daycare provider, but you're so in school and professional. But at the point when we got all together, we were on the same page. We all were about talking about the kids, about teaching them, and I didn't know that I was doing that already. And I was talking to them and they said, you're doing it already. You just have to implement it. So for me, it was awesome having everyone in there with different experiences and different ages of the kids. And then I have young infants, toddlers in preschool, and I was picking up from there any program. Every program I was picking for something from them.
I got to tell you,
so it was great.
I've got to visit Ramona. And one of the things I love is when Ramona's doing the poll strategies, she maybe have an infant on one shoulder and then she sings the song and chants with the toddlers and preschoolers. So it is just
it's a challenge. It's a challenge
program. And I want you to know that when we came back together, Ramona was one of the ones who was most looked to share ideas with the others. So it really was a really wonderful learning community. So that just in terms, okay, think real quick here that we're sending these people off now to train other people, train early childhood educators. One little bit of advice. You're the expert. One little bit of advice for trainers that you think would be helpful to them.
For trainers.
Ramona, I hear you're ready. What would you tell trainers?
Well, the only thing that I will say is main focus. Focus on what you love, focus on the message that you're giving the kids and working together with the parents. Everything have to, and no code switching, because I learned that. No code switching, because I speak English and I speak Spanish real good at Spanish. And I'm doing the switching when I'm doing the Spanish intentional message in the morning. I do the Spanish, and sometimes I throw a little bit of Spanglish, and I say, you know what, that's not working. I'm not gonna do the code switching. So I focus. My main focus is on the kids, that they taking something from me from the daycare, and they can implement it on the school. So when they go to school, they say they come from daycare. It's not something that I'm taking care of them. I'm learning together with them, and I'm teaching them. And that's what I want. Focus. If you want to be enrolled in the kids, focus what the main thing that you want for the kids.
And that's true for our trainers as well, to keep that focus. We've talked a lot about that in terms of the integration. I know it's so interesting. One of the things that we've talked about in the training is being a good language model. And one of the things is, when we're speaking Spanish, you're a good language model in Spanish. When you're speaking English, you're a good language model in English. So that was one of the ideas that you got there.
Yeah.
Christina, some idea for the trainers before they go?
I would say create that warm, friendly environment like you always did when we met. I mean, we're vulnerable. We're singing. I mean, you're creating this enthusiastic environment where we're all standing and performing chants. And I really feel like it helps get their creativity flowing. There's no bad ideas when it comes to language. Let's get it out there. Let's have fun with it.
Yeah.
Like Maritza said, making the chants, those are some of the best times I remember. And I remember all the chants.
Listen, Christina, I say the same. Those were my favorite sessions. I love those.
They're great. And, and also Ramona reminded me the breakout sessions were great. Or just listening to people share out, because I also had a licensed home daycare, but I stayed small, was not as brave as she was with the age range, but we learned from each other.
Yeah. Okay, and Marisa, something you want to tell those trainers to help them?
I agree with Ramona and Christina, what they already said. So I think just going off of what Christina said, just kind of giving time to practice before actually implementing it in the classroom, like, practicing creating a chant, or practicing creating the intentional message, because those are the things that kind of took time for me to learn, especially. So it took time. So I think just having the time to practice and really, get feedback from, somebody who might be coaching you or training you is really important. I remember, Anna coming to help us with the chants. That was an area that I struggled. And now I think of a tune and my vocabulary words, and I'm like, okay, I got this. The chants have become easier, but it took some practice. So I think definitely just practicing and taking it, one moment at a time.
Maritza, that is such a good one to end on, because we're actually, Elizabeth's talked about this, taking one step at a time.
Yeah.
And one of the things after this session, we're going to be talking to our trainers about start with one step. We talk about, we're not going to do all of this and our providers aren't going to. So what's your next step? And then give some time. And I think that was one of the things, and I loved what you said, Christina, about the warm, the warm environment, and Ramona, the focus of it. Those are the things. And then to really be supportive of one another, which we found in the multi-agency group, that we really did build a community of learners. And so you are all in my community, and I'm so grateful of all I've learned from you. So thank you for helping us today.
Thank you.
You are very welcome. Very welcome. Thank you.
Hi, this is
Jessica, you're muted.
Thank you so much. So we heard from providers and what made the training really meaningful for them and what they took from these training sessions, right? These foundational training sessions. And so now we want to move into kind of hearing the program leader's perspective, because that can be a little bit different, right? As we talked about, our program leaders participated and our supports in our learning setting, all those people in different roles participated in the training sessions with us in Fresno, and same thing in Kernan Tulare. And so we're hoping that you'll be able to do the same thing. And so we wanted to hear from the program leaders about what worked for them and what they found most valuable in to take back in their role of kind of supporting providers as they embark on using POLE strategies. So we'll go there now.
Hi, it's Whit here again, and now I have a new group of my friends to introduce to you and give you their perspective from a little different vantage point. And these are our program leaders who've been involved in the Language Learning Project. They have been involved with both the training and they've been involved with helping their staff implement these strategies. So before we start talking, I'd like for each of them to sort of tell you who they are and what programs they're involved with. Susan, you want to start?
Hi, my name is Susan Collins, and I'm the site supervisor at the Early Learning Center in Fresno, California. We have a standalone site with 5 classrooms, ranging from infants to toddlers to a preschool classroom and 2 pre-K classrooms.
Great, Susan. Okay, Barbara, you want to let us know about you and take off your mute there?
Hello, I'm Barbara Daniel, and I am the Child Development Center Coordinator at the Lighthouse for Children Child Development Center, which is operated by the Office of the Fresno County Superintendent of Schools. And our program provides services for children 6 weeks to 5 years old.
Great. Okay, Christina Avila, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. My name is Christina, and I work for Children's Services Network. With our agency, we have a few centers, 2 in Sanger and 1 in Fresno. And then also we work with family child care providers who have also had the privilege to be a part of the language project.
Great. Laura.
Good morning. My name is Laura Mitchell, and I am a program manager for Fresno Unified School District, and I oversee the 5 child development centers ranging from 6 weeks to 5 years old.
Christina?
My name's Christina Coble, and I work for the Fresno EOC Early Head Start program, and oversee the Child Development Center that ages infants to toddlers.
Great. So we have a nice variety of programs and of age groups here. So that I want you to do be thinking about, I know all of you have received training, and then I know all of you have helped providers implement training. So as you're looking at this, and we're talking to trainers now out there. So I think one of the things I'm going to ask you first of all is to think about what's been most helpful as from the viewpoint of a supervisor or a program leader. What has been most helpful to you in the trainings themselves? So think about some of the things from the training themselves that have been most helpful to you. So anyone who's willing to start, put up your hand there here. Okay, Susan, go for it.
I think one of the most beneficial outcomes from attending the meetings on Saturdays was that our whole staff could be there at the same time and hear the same information. And we always had an opportunity to work together with our own teams during the meetings with the experts there to guide us. So when we went back to the classrooms, it was a pretty smooth rollout.
That's great, Susan. So the idea that you were all there together and there was time there to actually plan and work together, that's great. Christina Beal, I saw your hand up too. What do you think?
I was just going to mention, the support and communication after any session, following up and having the availability to call Anna or anyone if we had any questions after attending any type of, whether it was back in person or now virtually, being able to do that is a big help.
Yeah, that's really great, Christina. So that what we're talking about is not only what you learned in the training, but if you had questions after the training, you could call the trainers and find out like what was going on. That's great. Barbara, anything there? What do you think was really helpful?
I think there's been a lot of pieces that have been helpful in supporting our dual language learners as a result of the in-person trainings, and a few of those being coaching, having the ability to have Anna come in and provide support to our teachers, really from a strength-based lens, and provide them with guidance to ensure that they're implementing the PROL strategies and really asking them what they need from her and her going in to observe. Also, as Susan shared, all of the staff being able to be present in the training so that everyone's receiving the same information and being able to work as a team to come back into our programs and implement the strategies that we're diving deep into during our trainings, and then also hearing from the experts and how other programs are implementing POL strategies. Sometimes some of the best information we can receive is from our peers as far as what they're doing, how they're doing it, and being able to bring some of those ideas back into our own programs.
Yeah, and what's been interesting, Barbara, I mean, I know you've learned from others, but others have learned from all of you. And so we know, I mean, all of you are very aware that we bring visitors to all of your programs and have you talk to people out there. So it's a two-way street. It's you learning from other programs and other programs learning from you. Christina, in terms of the training, and then how's that hit you? What's been most powerful?
It's been helpful in a lot of ways. When you first started off, you were kind of wondering what was this all about, and sometimes you get wrapped up in your own kind of center and agency, and just knowing that when we were going to those meetings, collaborating with other agencies with that same goal in mind was really, really supportive. And so that's been really helpful as far as knowing that you're not alone in this, that everyone's learning, and everybody's excited about it. And then the coaching part, having Anna come with that coaching part just to support the centers even more.
So so it's that common sort of, like you said, the shared across program, but also all of your staff there with a common vision of what we're trying to learn there. I also I want to support one of the other things you said. At first, you didn't know what was going on.
Yes.
And as trainers out there, that's what happens at first. And we've actually talked about that in the Trainers of Trainers, that as we go on, people grow in their confidence and their competence. So at the beginning, they don't have it. At they're wondering what's all this about. So that what we've talked about in the training is that at the beginning, the trainers talk a lot more than they do at the end. By the end, in the fifth session, the participants are talking a lot, but at the beginning, it's new. So we have to be sensitive to that this is something new to people, and help them learn along the way. Laura Mitchell, what sort of about the training? You've been involved with all of it, Laura, from the beginning. What do you think about the training?
So I just want to piggyback off of everyone else. The side-by-side learning with the staff, the side-by-side learning with other community partners has been a great eye-opener for everyone. You get to learn from each of the agencies, and then you get to learn from each other. And then having the experts there to share with you, give you feedback, and then for our coach to do the follow-up. And we also had not only Anna, but we had other coaches there that were learning side by side with us, so that we were all learning together and they could come back and support.
I'm going to talk about that, because that's important, because it's like, and we even are saying now, it's like there's a lot of different people that can play that kind of supporting and support role. And so that one of the, we had lots of different people. We had coaches and other administrators there at these trainings, and who were supporting your sites and who could help people with these strategies. Now I want to kind of move from that in terms of what happened for you, but to think about your sites. And I know a lot of interesting things happened at the sites that you were a part of and supportive of, in terms of sort of the learning that continued to go on. And so I'm going to start with you, Barbara, because I think there's been a lot of interesting things. So think about, in terms of, okay, you go to the training, what's happened back at the sites among your team?
I think some of the things that have happened at our site, one, it's brought us closer together in understanding how to support our dual language learners. I also think that it's increased our relationships with our parents, as we're learning more about our families when we are working with them on the language surveys upon entry, and learning more about the families and their needs, their wants and desires for their children. But more importantly, beginning those early conversations about the importance of us supporting their home language, and families also recognizing that importance. And then from there, We also created presentation boards that are available in our lobby for parents to view that really highlight how we're utilizing POL strategies in our classroom, from songs, chants, vocabulary, how we are how parents are involved in our program. And we're putting that on display for parents to really see that we're not just saying, oh, we're interested in learning more about your child's home language, we want to support it, but they're actually able to see it in practice from those boards and through the conversations that our staff are having on a regular basis at the end of the day when parents are asking questions about what their children have learned or discovered throughout the day.
Yeah, and Barbara, I've learned, I mean, so it's really interesting about your, about those presentation boards and how powerful those have been, where people can see, everyone can see, your staff sees together, but families. And one of your teachers today said the most interesting thing, Barbara, and that was, as we, in terms of some of this that we're dealing with COVID, where families were not coming directly into the classroom, the presentation boards about what was going on with POL have been especially powerful to keep people connected. So even when they drop off their kids, they can see what's going on around the POL strategies. Christina, I want to follow up on that because I know that you have individuals, family child care providers, but I know they've done similar things to the presentation boards for their families. You want to talk about that?
Yes, so our providers, and I just want to say one little note, we had a total, I believe, 4 providers home providers that attended all our language project meetups. However, with the opportunity of allowing our site visitors, who are the ones that go out to the providers, that's about 60 providers that are now receiving, again, not to the extent of, being in person, getting all the firsthand knowledge, but now our site visitors are going out and providing the same, POL strategy. So boards are up on home providers, and they're communicating with their families with the family survey. So again, it has really extended to a very large throughout Fresno County with the providers that we serve. So it's great to see, Ramona was my provider for the longest time. And she, her energy, her enthusiasm to hear and implement things like POL strategies and having her board. And really, I think it's really created, like Barbara said, another level of, relationship with the families and the providers.
And, I want to follow up on that, Christina, because it's been so powerful. And I'm not sure that everyone completely, understands the power of it, that you have the home visitors who are going into 60 sites, and they were all part of the POL training. And so even though, like you said, it wasn't as intense as the 4 who went to sessions themselves, but you had a great scaling that went on. And I know in some of your professional developments that you did on your own, you were continuing to support it with the POL strategies. So trainers, this is something really important, I think, about who you train with, that you can bring people in who are going to have greater impact in scaling. And that was a beautiful example at Children's Services Network with their family child care network, where they were expanding it. They used their core group with their 4 providers and their home visitors to expand it to 60 others. And so we've seen real wonderful outcomes.
I do want to add one more thing. Anna, we contacted her, and she's done multiple trainings, not only to our family child care centers, but also our own CSN centers, that even though we didn't have any of those staff who attended the language project meetings, they have all received more than once training from Anna on really getting that implementation through in-person trainings.
Okay, Laura Mitchell, I'm coming to you now. Tell them what happened in Fresno around the POL strategies. We started with just those teachers that were there, but talk about the coaches that came and what we've done with everybody now.
So we started off with just at an early learning center, and then we invited our coaches that go out and support all the other 63 sites that we have. So they've also been trained in the POL strategies, and we're scaling those strategies up into all of the other classrooms that we have. So we've really noticed that they have honored the home language, and bringing it into the classroom. And then also for themselves, honoring their own home language they can bring into the classroom.
And so we see two different ways of scaling, both of which were very powerful in terms of saying we start with, in terms of the people that got the benefit of the intensive training, but then to involve other people who get it, the coaches, the home visitors. And so trainers, as you're listening to this, it's a really good thing to think about who is invited to the trainings. It's like, you want a core group, you want a cohort of providers, but think about trainers and coaches who have ability to share this in terms of their own programs. Christina, in terms of Early Head Start and in terms of how you've supported those Early Head Start staff people.
So we started off with just one classroom in the beginning. And then as we were progressing forward, we went into the toddler side classroom. And now we're kind of scaling it. We're scaling it to focusing on the interview questions with both centers. I think that was a valuable tool because it just, as I was reading it and seeing how the teachers were utilizing this interview question form, was really giving them the opportunity to really get to know the family at the home visit before they even come into the center. So it was building that relationship. And so both my centers are now utilizing that interview question form as part of their first step to getting to know these families.
And so that's great. So what have you started with more intensive training for one, and then two, and then scaling it to another site? What we're finding, Christina, is that the state now, we're gonna brag a little. The state is really looking at that interview tool as a way that we may begin to use statewide around identification of dual language learners. So we all agree. But what I love about what you said, and we're telling this to the trainers, start with small steps. And then begin to use it to expand from there. Mm-hmm. Susan, just a little bit about, because I know your center's done some amazing things as a group. So you just want to talk how that sort of energy has happened there?
Well, like I said before, the opportunity for everyone to be together at the same time on the Saturday meetings was a rare event. So that helped them to be able to understand the challenges of each other's age groups. So from the infants starting at 6 weeks old, where, we were thinking, well, how is that going to look in the infant room, with the POLE strategies? And so the teachers of the older children were able to help the infant toddler teachers implement for the younger group of children. And it turned out where they would get together and talk about the chants and songs that they were coming up with. And it really made a huge difference, I thought, in the infant classroom with promoting language very intentionally, where before, it might not have been that they would be using the same words again and again in such an intense way. And then as the infants got a little bit older, they were able, when they got around a year to 18 months, they're able to really mimic all the sounds and things that they're hearing from the teachers. And then it just spread like wildfire right into the other classrooms, seeing more and more and more of it as we went along.
Okay, I want to follow up on two things there, Susan. One is that I think we so valued the fact that we had birth through 5 staff at these trainings. And what you said went on there at your sites, where they could sort of see that continuum of, and it doesn't look the same in a toddler class as it does in a preschool class, but we can see that continuum of how we support dual language learners along that pathway. And also, Christina, what's interesting for your provider is they have the whole continuum. Most of them had that whole continuum right in their homes. And so it was really powerful to have a training that followed that along the whole continuum. And another thing you said, Susan, which I want to say that we've seen too, it created greater bonding among staff, period. So it wasn't just about dual language learning, it was about all the things that we do in those programs. And so having people have this shared learning was a real wonderful experience for all the centers. Okay, we're almost done, guys. What I want you to do, now I know guys, I should say women, so all you women there, that what I want you to do, and real briefly here, think about, these are trainers and they're nervous. They're nervous. This is new. They're at that first step. So what can you say to them? Just brief say in terms of some sort of an encouraging word to them around all of this to help them get started in their counties and communities. So Susan, what would you say to them?
Just jump in and do it. Don't overthink it. Just jump right in with both feet, and they'll see right away the reaction from the children will be their motivating factor to even do more.
That's great. Barbara, what do you think in terms of new trainers? What should we say to them?
I would say to continue being intentional in really diving deeper to understand the importance of supporting our dual language learners in maintaining their home languages, and also promoting early development of new languages with our youngest learners, as we're utilizing Spanish and Hmong and some of the other language with some of our children. Other children in the room are hearing that language, and it's providing them with rich future experiences as well. So really just remaining intentional in all that we do in our work.
Okay, Christina A.
I'm going to say connection, find a way to connect with your audience, and by them sharing their own experiences, it makes it easier to learn. So allowing them to share examples of what they go through, so that way you can really hit them powerful with whatever knowledge you have to share with them, and remind them that you're in it with them as well.
Okay, Christina C.
I would say just, just to enjoy what you're doing, just enjoy it, be yourself, because you know what you're doing, embrace all the cultures, and just, connect, and just be who you are, authentically, because you know what you're doing, and it's gonna come out, and you're gonna do, the kids are just gonna enjoy it. Families are gonna know that you're meaningful and it's intentional.
Great. Mm-hmm. Laura Mitchell, finally here.
So I would say to be intentional, be a listener, be a learner, and know that you are providing all children the opportunity for rich experiences.
You know what? Thank you. I've got to tell you, I know you trainers that are in this training, you realize I've been so lucky to work with these phenomenal leaders, and that we're in a shared community, which you are now going to be a part of. We're creating a larger learning community. And so that just the way that we've talked about visits, we are anxious for you to begin to come visit us, and for us to become to visit your programs around the state that you're working on. So thank you guys. I appreciate it.
All right, we have come to time for our break. So please take a 10-minute break, and we will be back to continue with our session.
Trainers. And so that this next section, we talked with the providers, we talked with the program leaders, but we also want to talk with the people who come in to support the providers. And this could be any number of people. In some cases, it's coaches, home visitors. Sometimes it's actually the program administrator. But we want to talk about that relationship that happens when two people who have gone through the training come in to work together to sort of support the implementation of those strategies. So the two people that we have, well, you're going to see it now when we come back, and I think you'll recognize these faces. So let's go, Jessica. Okay, now we have heard from providers about the training and what it meant to them and what was most effective. We've also talked to program leaders about how they use the training back at their sites, how they support staff and what they do back at their sites to make it meaningful. Now I want to talk a little bit about what we're going to call support providers. And we've got one right here, Anna, who's a support provider in Fresno. And so I want to talk about these extra people. It may be a supervisor, it may be a coach, but we're going to talk about people, maybe a consultant, who are able to come in and help you. So we want to give some help now about how can that work? How can it work when we have some extra help, we have another set of eyes, and how can that work to help the training be more meaningful and help providers really integrate the training into their work? So I want to start with you, Anna, because Anna, remind me of your name now. You're called Early Learning Support Specialist now, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
correct.
you're an early learning support specialist. So you help teachers and you help childcare providers. You help family childcare providers. You're helping a lot of people. So Anna, you've been through the training. You've also helped a lot of providers institute the training. So tell me a little bit about how you've done that, how it works, how you make it meaningful.
Thank you, Whit. So first of all, I do want to say that I was learning alongside these practitioners. So we had our professional development sessions. I was right there learning the content with them. And so that allowed me the opportunity to reflect with them during our one-on-one time and supporting them with the implementation of the PUL strategies. Not only did it support me in supporting them, but it allowed me the opportunity to clarify any wonderings that they had regarding the content that they learned about, because we were both there at the same time learning from our experts. And so going back to the support during our one-on-one time, there's a specific form that I used that is a strength-based approach where I validate what the teacher is doing around the PUL strategies. And not only validate, but it allowed the practitioner to generate the goal around the specific strategy that she wanted to work on during our time together. And I will go ahead and share that form with all of you. And so this is a form that I used during my one-on-one time and supporting the practitioners around goal setting. And as I mentioned earlier, it's a strength-based approach. So the practitioner would generate the goal around the specific strategy that she wanted to work on. She would self-rate herself, share with me some things that are working that she has been doing in her classroom with implementation of the PUL strategies, and then share what steps and actions she would like to take to achieve that goal. And it wouldn't end there because then I would ask, what are some ways that I can support you in achieving this goal? And so it was a collaborative. It wasn't the teacher working in silos. It was a collaborative between the teacher and myself. And when I say teacher, I'm referring to also our in-home providers, because I was also supporting them with the PUL strategies during this time as well. And so just generating goals around what they wanted to work on. And it was all in supporting the children in their classrooms, whether it was the family supports, maybe it was the environmental supports, the instructional supports, the home language support, which we know that can be a challenge sometimes in supporting the home languages, especially when we don't speak the languages of the children and families in our program. So this was a forum that allowed us the opportunity to collaborate and share. And it was a safe place where the practitioner and myself sat together, and she would share with me what has been working, what she wants to work on, and we would do this every month.
And Anna, I really I like your 3 boxes there: working on it, on my way, and got this. And so it's a nice sort of self-assessment for practitioners. And then you two could sit down there and talk about how you're going to work on. One of the things I was thinking about as you were talking, Anna, we're thinking about this could be any number of people could do this with a practitioner. And I think a lot of peer support, this could be a great co-teaching idea or co-educator idea where 2 would do it together and look at this, where you'd talk about how you're feeling about that and you could support one another. So there's many, many ways this tool can be used, because I know a lot of programs don't have the luxury of a coach or specialist, but this form is really to be adapted to use, saying we're all in a community of learners. And so this is a forum that can help us work together. No one should do it alone. We all believe that about PUL. So we're finding ways that we can do this. So Jessica, just in terms of your memories, in terms of sitting down with Anna with this forum, tell us about sort of how it worked, what you thought.
Yeah, absolutely. As Anna said, it's all about validating our efforts and focusing on our strengths. So I was very fortunate that Anna was my support in the learning setting. And it was a very self-reflective process. I got to set my own goals. I got to reflect on things, and she spent some time with me in my learning setting. So she knew what was going on, and I shared with her, oh, this has worked so far, but this is not working so much. So it provided that time for me to self-reflect on what was going on, how things were going, just like it says, how's it going? Things like how is my family supports? How's my home language support? All the different parts of the PUL strategies. And as you said, we shouldn't do this alone. it doesn't work that way. We need our support and having someone, whether it be another adult in the learning setting with you, a co-teacher at your program, or someone who does come in like a coach or a specialist. It's really important that we have them with us. But my favorite part was that it gave me the time to see, you know what, I'm doing great on some things. And yeah, I still have some challenges. And let's figure out some concrete steps on what I can do to work on those challenges and to just better my implementation. And so it was very concrete. It wasn't like, oh, I'm having this problem and I have no way to solve it. But it was, okay, I'm struggling with this, or I'm finding some questions about this. What can I do? How can I do it? And we collaborated and were able to work on bettering those things. And honestly, some of my goals lasted for months. Because, you know, we're trying out things or testing out things. And it really is that collaboration, that back and forth. You got to try something out, come back and reflect. How did it go? How was it going? Do we need to adjust? But it was so valuable.
And I think it's really important, Anna, you talked about it, so important. You were part of the training. You were learning together so that after each session, you could go back and you could reflect on it and talk about those goals and work together on it. So we heard the same thing from the program leaders where they were part of the training. So that's crucial to POLE, is the idea that we're all learning together, we're sharing together. We have different roles, but the roles all go together in the community of learners. Anna, you were going to say something.
I wanted to add with the leaders, as you mentioned, were part of those professional development trainings, and they were essential because they also supported the practitioner with the implementation of the POLE strategies. When they walked into the classroom, they would call out some of those POLE strategies that they were seeing in action, whether it was a song or chant, the use of an anchor text, intentional message in the environment. So they also had the opportunity to support the practitioner with the implementation of the POLE strategies, because we were all learning together. And just like the POLE strategies, they don't work in silos, right? And so as programs, we work with our leaders, our educators, and any other support systems that you have to help you be successful in supporting children and families in your programs.
And one of the other things that Anna did, which was really helpful in the program, is this community of learners. So she had the privilege of going into many different kinds of settings. So what she could do was she could connect people. So someone in one setting had particular skills or interests in this area, she could connect with somebody else from another program. So that was a real community. And Jessica talked a little bit about that in terms of, I know at the beginning we had agencies that didn't know each other. So talk a little bit about the development of that community.
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the best parts is even now, however many years, 6 years into the Language Learning Project, I've now have connections with family childcare providers that I didn't have before. And we all, and Head Start, early Head Start, different centers, and we all have our, like you said, our strengths. We all have our challenges. We all have different views of our learning settings are different, but we all bring something unique to it. And when we collaborate, when we have that opportunity through someone like Anna, who provides that support and those connections, it makes the work so much just more powerful.
Right. And Anna, I want to go back to the one that I'm going to end with what you started with. It's a strength-based approach. On your chart there, what we're saying is we're learning, we're beginning to get it, we've got it. Not like it's a deficit. Nobody's in a deficit. And you know what? We're all learning together. It's new to a lot of us. So we start with where we are and say we're learning it. Then we talk about how we're getting it, and then we've got it. And so one of the nice things about when we've got it is, I've got to tell you, in the trainings toward the end, especially the 4th and 5th, people shared so many wonderful ideas that they had already implemented in their programs. And I think it's in that collaborative learning process they were able to do that. Okay, thank you. Okay, this is Whit here, and I have the honor now of leading into the next section. And I've got to tell you, I've been looking at the chat box and I see so many of you thanking Dr. Carola Oliva Olson for her response. And I also want to thank, not only was Carola one of the originators of the POLE strategies, but Carola has been working on this both in terms of being a professor in higher ed and now at the Institute of Higher Learning and Research, and saying, how can we implement it better? What do people need out there that can help them really implement these tools in a better way? And so I'm really excited to introduce Carola and Anna, who are going to share with you a wonderful new tool that they have created that I think is going to help us go deeper and scale more and more quality around these pulse strategies. So Carola, we're going to listen to you and to Anna talking about this.
Hola y bienvenidos. Hello and welcome back. We are delighted to now share a tool to support implementation and refinement of the use of the pulse strategies. This tool has been in the making for several years now, and it entails a major accomplishment for those involved. The authors include Drs. Linda Espinosa, Marlene Cepeda, Verónica Fernández, Lilian Duran, my wonderful colleague Ana Arambula González, and myself. So, what is the DLS for? Who should use it? When and why should we consider its use? These are all important questions that we will address in this segment. We also will offer opportunities for you to ask questions throughout the session. You should now have access to the dual language support, so DLS as we call it, from the pulsestrategies.org website and from the dlssupports.org link as well. We recommend that you have it handy as a printed copy or on your screen so that you can get a better sense of the structure, the sections, and the overall length. Muy bien, let's begin. This tool was created to support the implementation of pulse strategies in early learning settings, whether it's a classroom, a home, or even a virtual context. It is meant to support educators, but it also helps you as a trainer in your professional learning. It supports lead teachers, assistant teachers, family childcare providers, family friends and neighbor programs, home visitors, and coaches or specialists who are working with early childhood educators. The tool is also available for transitional kindergarten and kindergarten settings, and it can be used in many different ways. It can also be used as a whole or in part. This is not an assessment, and this is very important. It should not be used to rate or monitor those who are implementing pulse strategies. In order for this to become an assessment, it would have to go through a rigorous research-based validation process. So you can use the DLS as part of your training to follow your participants' level of implementation and understanding. So for example, you can ask your participants to complete a section of the tool before you begin your sessions, and then complete again after they've had a chance to implement and practice in their setting. Their responses can help guide your future sessions. Educators can use it to reflect on the implementation of pulse practices, and upon completion, use it individually to enhance their practice, to prompt conversations with their coach or specialist, and engage in communities of practice, and also to select professional development opportunities tailored to their desired areas of strength and enhancement. You might also use it as an ongoing support to improve practices and to guide the implementation of pulse strategies in your program. As you can see on the screen, there are two tools. One is for use in learning settings with infants and toddlers, and the other one is for use in learning settings with children ages 3 to 5. It's important to state that the tool enables all educators, including those who are monolingual speakers, to self-reflect on the unique teaching practices needed to fully support each child who's a dual language learner. This means that the tool is geared for use when educators speak and when they don't speak the languages of the children. You might ask yourself about the program's language models and if this tool applies in the different language of instruction contexts. The answer is yes. Knowing what languages are used for teaching is very important, because we then get a sense of how teaching is organized around English and home language on a daily or a weekly basis. This is the case for learning settings that have adopted a formal dual language model, meaning that they teach both languages equally and intentionally in all domains of learning, that is, math and science and literacy.
These are the sections included in the DLS tool. As you will notice, there is an additional section titled Emotional Wellness. While this is not exclusively pole practice, it is best practice for all children as we support their social emotional development and emotional well-being. We'll highlight these items shortly throughout our time together today. As you can see in the section starting in page 6, the leading question is, am I doing this? And then it states a practice item with 3 levels for responses. This is what it looks like when you look at individual items within one of the sections. We will go over each one later today, but for now, we want you to see how an item includes 3 major implementation levels. One is not doing it yet, the other is beginning to do this, and the last one is doing consistently. As you can see, in responding, there are many options to check as applicable in each level. For example, if I'm an educator and have not started the specific practice, here it's under family supports. Am I using the family language and culture interview, or how others call it, a dialogue form? In this case, if I have not started, then I would check all the options that apply in my case. For example, I don't know how to do this and I don't have the resources. Now, I will hand it over to Dr. Carola Oliva-Olsen to answer any of your questions that you might have already entered in the chat, or if you haven't yet, we invite you at this moment to do so. Enter your questions in the chat and we'll have some time to respond to them. Thank you.
We are live now. So any of you who have questions, that Carola is here. If there's any questions that you have about this tool, or that in terms of what it's for, its implementation, go ahead and enter those in the chat now.
So I see Heidi's question, can you use this tool over and over again? And yes, it's up to you to decide how it fits best in the context maybe of your training, or as a coach working with an educator. And once you become familiar with it, you will be better able to assess how you want to use it. So we'll go deeper into the tool shortly, and then we'll show how it works if you want to use it online. But as we explained here, you can use it as a whole to get a sense of overall, where are we in terms of implementation of all of the strategies, and then decide what to tailor, what to target. Or you might want to work on sections because that's an area maybe that an educator decided this is where I need more work, or where I want to focus on at this time. So the tool is for you to use how you feel works best. Again, as long as you're not using as an assessment, right, where you're evaluating a person, an educator. So it's fluid and flexible in that way. The other thing I'll say based on these comments here is that when you answer, am I doing this? There's 3 levels that Anna showed. Those levels have several items or responses that can be checked. And those responses are important because they give you a sense of what is it that is preventing maybe the educator from moving forward and doing this consistently. So it gives us breadth, understanding of the practice, the lack of having started it, maybe of moving into a consistent pattern of implementation.
Carola, I a really good question here, because I know that in the earlier video, Anna talked about the how is it going form, and I know that this form was developed long after that. So how do you see the two relating? Or someone's asking, should you use both, or what does that mean?
Fabulous. So remember, this gives you, as you'll see, and when you get familiar with it, it gives lots of, it takes apart all of the items within the different sections of POL, and it gives you information as to where am I, and in the understanding of this item. For example, the first one with a family, culture and language interview form. Am I not doing this yet because I don't think it's important? I don't know about it, or is it, I don't know how to implement it in my program? Is it an issue with resource? Now, when you start working with your coach or yourself individually as an educator with your group of children, then the form that Anna was mentioning helps you in that process of learning in depth about that item or that strategy. Because the DLS tool gives you, are you doing this? And maybe why you are at the level that you are. But then you have to work on your understanding, on the implementation, on the integration within your practice. So both work hand in hand, but it doesn't stop with the first level here of using the DLS tool. This gives you an understanding of where do we need to support the educator, or where do we, if it's I'm doing self-reflecting myself, where am I in the totality of all the practices or in this section? And then the other one helps with a process.
Yeah, and I think, Carola, that's really good, because I also see that in terms of just sort of your whatever your regularly scheduled kind of conferences, whether it be with a peer or with a coach, that you're really, that this, what do I want to work on? And that your tool is really helping us dig much deeper than into all of those elements. So I really do think you're right. They can go hand in hand, and they're flexible, that there's not necessarily a right way, but for people to figure out what works for them.
Yes, and I see Heidi's question. We will address this when we go through the website and what the website provides versus a printed copy.
Okay, Jessica, are we ready to go on?
We are. Let's go ahead and do that now.
Okay, we will now shift to focus specifically on the items that are included in each section of the tool. We have listed them for convenience in these documents that we will show to you. That way, it is simpler and easier to follow. You can download these documents from the polstrategies.org site. Remember, this is a tool for educators, but also for you to use in your training. These materials help you to train others on how to become familiar with the dual language support tool, and to learn about the items that are included in the tool and how to use the tool if you're an educator or if you're a coach. We will start with the items from the DLS for learning settings with infants and toddlers, and then go over the items for the learning settings with children ages 3 to 5. Muy bien, vamos a verlos. Let's look at them. Notice that the DLS has all the POL sections: family supports, environmental supports, and instructional supports, and additional sections that we've included under emotional wellness, effective oral language interactions, and assessment of language development. All of these are components to ensure that all children who are dual language learners have full access, effective participation in all learning settings, and are important for a cohesive program for children who are dual language learners. I will highlight some items to demonstrate the level of detail that the tool covers. You can go over all of the items individually. This one is for infants and toddlers, and let me highlight some of them. Here's one. I share with families the benefits of bilingualism, language preservation and revitalization, and the importance of the home language for everyday interactions. This is under family supports. Another one under this section is, I ask families to translate commonly used phrases and words in their home language. Another one, I invite parents and family members to volunteer to read books and sing songs using their home language. This can be done in person or virtually. And another one, I reassure parents that children with special needs benefit from having a strong home language foundation. If we look at another section, I'll highlight this one. I include family photos, artifacts, and tribal traditional materials that reflect home life, cultural skills, values, beliefs, and community. I incorporate books and visuals that are anti-bias in reflecting children's personal experiences and community and cultural background. So these are examples of the items that are included in this section. We'll now look at the other tool.
Thank you, Dr. Carola. So I will now review some of the instructional supports for learning settings with children ages 3 to 5. You have the document to go over each item individually. However, today I will highlight some items specifically. So for example, in the emotional wellness, what we've been learning is that we want to use the child's home language when they are in distress. And that is something that we added in the social emotional development for the emotional wellness section of this DLS tool. Now, in the instructional support strategy, we want to highlight specifically the family connection. And that one, we want to ensure that 1 week before starting a new theme or unit, that you share with families the book, new vocabulary, the song, to preview and review materials to the child in their home language. So this is something that the parent would be doing in advance. Then secondly, it is very important that we implement appropriate modifications such as activity steps, materials, and equipment as identified by those specialists for those children who have IEPs, for DLL children with delays or disabilities. And lastly, it is important that we support dual language learners' literacy development by focusing on both their home language and English language development. So these are just a few items that we wanted to highlight during our time together. As Dr. Carola Oliva Olsen mentioned earlier, you will have access to this tool on the websites that she shared with all of you, and you will also have an opportunity to download hard copies as well.
Thank you, Anna. Like Anna mentioned, this last, this one item on how it's important, am I doing this, right? Am I supporting children's literacy development in both English and the home language? Well, what does that mean if I don't speak the home language? These are the strategies that come together as in the tool cohesively, right? We want to make sure that we know what the child is able to do and understand in specifically literacy skills, and know what the child can demonstrate in English, because that's tied to English proficiency. So that is looking at other strategies that are in the POL supports, and how to use the home language and how to incorporate or include others who speak the child's home language to be able to document what the child is developing, and not particularly in English, but in general. So, okay, so let's now look at the overall tool in both with infants and toddlers and children ages 3 to 5, but in Spanish. It's important to highlight that they are different. They're different because learning and development are unique at each stage. You will see this reflected in the items. For example, in instructional supports for infants, we focus on language exchanges during diapering, milk time, before and after nap time, and during transitions. For preschool, another one is we point out similarities and differences in all languages, for example, using Cognate, and allowing children to code switch and using the speech patterns, intonations, and pronunciations that are used in the home and in the community, such as African American vernacular or Spanglish. Para bebés y niños pequeños, como un ejemplo, incorporo vocabulario nuevo para los intercambios de idiomas durante el cambio de pañales, a la hora de comer, antes y después de la siesta y durante las transiciones. Para preescolar o los niños de 3 a 5 años, señalo similitudes y diferencias en los idiomas, por ejemplo, utilizando cognados. Permito la alternancia de códigos y el uso de entonaciones y pronunciaciones usadas en el hogar y en las comunidades de los niños.
Now, we would like to invite you to enter any questions that you may have for Dr. Carola regarding the DLS in the chat box, but also we want to invite you to respond to this question. How do you envision the use of the DLS in your work? So using the chat box, please respond to this question, but then also enter any questions that you may have for us regarding the DLS tool. Thank you so much. Thank you, Jessica. So now what we are going to be doing is still invite you to continue entering those questions that you may have for Dr. Oliva Olson or myself regarding the DLS. But now what we're going to do is Dr. Oliva Olson is going to walk you through quickly through the website dllssupports.org, so you can get a feel of what it looks like. And then when she's done, I'll show you how you can generate the actual tool once you submit your responses.
Good. You're able to see it, I hope. I'm showing you this one because it's the one that we use to make all the changes, but the one that you actually go to is the dllsupports.org. What you will see as soon as you go into the site is that you have the option on the top right corner to switch to Spanish. You just click Español and it takes you there. If you want to go back, you simply click English and it takes you to this site. You have two options. You could go through the infants and toddlers section or the one for children's ages 3 to 5. If, let's say, we start here, then you have two ways to go about this. You can do and complete the tool online. If you do so, you must complete the entire tool. If you don't want to do that, then you would download a print version, a copy that you can print and then make copies and decide to use in parts, in sections, or as a whole. It's up to you. If you decide to do this and we'll navigate together, then you'll see a top bar that shows how much you've completed of the whole tool. So we're just starting. I'm going to include my name. We're not going to do the whole thing, but I'd like to show you that you can choose the kind of the program that you are in. Choose the age level. Let's say we have a mixed age group. I'm just guessing and showing you the different options that exist, not really particularly following one. So let's say lead teacher. And then we say whether we're teaching virtually, maybe both virtually and in person, that we are in a program that is full day. Then I include the languages of the lead teacher. In this case, it's myself. And let's say I speak Farsi and English. Then the assistant teacher who might speak Spanish, Mixteco, and English. And then the number of children who are dual language learners, let's say they're 8. This is based on the information that you have from the family, culture, and language interview form that you've collected from the families at the beginning of the year, hopefully, or eventually. So let's say the children's home languages are Vietnamese, Spanish, Mixteco, and English. Now, I think this is important. We include here the model to be able to identify if there is a formal decision for a model at the program level or the family child care provider home, because it clarifies what we're going to observe or how things, the strategies are going to be implemented. So is it a balanced dual language model? Is it English with home language support? Or is it another one? Maybe there's not a formal model selected, and it might be that languages, let's say 2 languages are represented in, 2 languages are spoken by the teachers. And these 2 languages from the children available in the group are spoken by the children, by the teachers. And then I have to describe here, how are they used during the day? And maybe the languages are available throughout the day. But there's not, again, there's not a formal approach. And this is important information. If you are the coach, this is important information for us to help and support that program, to support that teacher with the group of children that he or she are teaching. Then what kind of curriculum? Let's say it's creative curriculum. I should put a uppercase, an assessment, the DRDP, maybe they have the pre-IPT. And then we begin. This is important because there was someone who put this question in the chat that she had noticed that you have this background information on the website. Yes, that's the thing. If you use the website link, then you're going to have to ask, you'll have to answer all these questions every single time. If you use a printed copy, not so, you don't have to do that. But I want to show you briefly that every time you answer, am I doing this? You have not doing yet, beginning to do this, or doing consistently. And then you have to check all that apply based on that answer. So you can see the answers respond to understanding of the concept of that item, beliefs, and supports. Are you supported in your program? Do you have the resources, etc.? The same here. It just clarifies for the coach why it is that you are in this level. And in doing consistently, it's also very important because it's not only that I might be doing this regularly and that I think I'm very confident about doing this, but there might be a possibility of supporting that educator in training and supporting others in the program if they aren't already. So this is how you would walk through the entire tool if you were using the link. Again, if you use the printed copy, you can choose what sections to focus on. Anna, would you like to share your screen to demonstrate how then once you fill out the form, what you can do to print and keep it in for your records.
Correct. So this is the form that Dr. Oliva Olson just walked us through. So this is the last of it. And so I've already completed it. I clicked submit. Once I click submit, you will get a PDF form that you can download, save on your device, and use it to print it. You can save it on your iPad, your phone as well, because it's going to be compatible for phones as well. And you can have it as a reference. And like we have shared, this is a tool that can be used with coaches, with specialists, with anyone who is supporting within your program, who's supporting the practitioner. You can use this tool to really help you see how you are supporting dual language learners in your program. And so you'll be able to download it, like I mentioned, with all of your responses on here, everything that you shared, you've completed on the tool itself online, you'll have it there for you. Okay, and now we're going to leave
about, I think, to answer some questions. I see an important question here, Anna, about how this tool can support children with disabilities, children who have an IEP, who are struggling to even develop communication skills. Well, children who are dual language learners and who have disabilities or special needs, or are in the process of a referral and having an evaluation. All children need to be supported, and they need to be supported with the different strategies that are identified by their specialists, by the IEP plan. They're incorporated. And even if they're at a low, in terms of developing communication skills and not being able to respond, you are supporting them at the level that where they are. So when you look at the tool, at the section on effective oral language interactions, this is where the items respond to each individual child and how to scaffold where the child is, right? So we're not using language for teaching and learning the same way for everyone. There are children who are at the home language stage who are not yet producing the language used for teaching at that given time. And there are other children who are not even using their home language. They're very silent. They're observing everything. And that's where Wit's and Jessica's magic from the beginning of every session comes in. We use music with the words that we've been teaching. And because that removes that layer of threat, right, for the children, and they all participate, and they're all producing language. And it's not up to them to know what to say or what words come together correctly to express their thoughts or ideas. And for children who are developing communication skills as well. Yes.
One thing I think is really important that people understand, this is not an assessment tool for children. This is about the environment and the supports, so that we're not, so yes. We have kids at all different, these are universal tools. You'll have kids at very different levels, including children that may have IEPs. It's not a tool to assess children at all.
At all. It's guidance for coaching, guidance for implementation of strategies to support the children.
Right, yeah.
Thank you.
Jessica.
I'm here. So because Elizabeth has been a big part of these training of trainer sessions, she's a big part of the foundational sessions, and she's a big part of POL, right? Along with Dr. Oliva Olson and Dr. Linda Espinosa and Wit. We're going to leave off with some closing final words from Elizabeth as we launch off to do this work, right? So to get ready to do this. So we're going to hear from her now.
We're hoping that your time spent with us over the last 3 sessions has given you some concrete approaches to how you'll think about conducting your trainings. Remind providers that what they've learned can and should be planned and implemented over time and one step at a time, and that they have support to do this. Toward the end of each session, we ask you as trainers to often help your participants think about what they've learned, what might be new to them, what might be challenging, what might not be new, but might be a strategy that they're thinking differently about. So in that same spirit of reflection, I encourage all of you as trainers to reflect on what you've learned and what goals or next steps you'll take after today's session. So take a moment to think about that now, and please write down 1 to 2 goals you have as you think about conducting training on POLE components and strategies, and use chat to share a goal you have. Then think about what you might need in order to address your goal. So I'll leave you here with the team to share a goal or 2 that you have. Use the chat box to do that. Thank you all for being here with us on this journey. I'm so thrilled to have been here with you during these sessions, and I really look forward to hearing how your trainings go. Team?
Okay, everybody out there, we just heard Elizabeth ask us to think about identifying 1 to 2 goals, and then think, what will you need to address your goals? And then we're going to add 1 3rd thing we'd like you to put in that chat box. So let's look at what that next thing is. What are your questions as we move ahead? So we would, and you know what, Jessica and the rest of us are going to be here as part of this new learning community we've developed. So if there are questions that you have, please enter those in the chat box. So think about what your goals are. Think about what your questions are. I know that this last session with this great new tool that Carola introduced, you have questions. So sort of help us know what the areas of need are. So in the chat box now, take some time and put in some of those goals and the questions that you may have that we can address. So let's take a look at that chat box. My team, anyone that sees one that they want to comment on, feel free here.
They are all so good.
There's one, home language is so important. My goal is to use the POLE strategies to assist DLL students. I think that's a powerful one.
Yeah, and I see a lot of people about digging into the family language and interest survey and the interview form. And I really like that. One says getting familiar with this all. That's one of the things that we talked about all the way along. It's like, get familiar with it. Don't feel like that you're expected to know it all right off. That's a good question. She said, is the interview form a requirement? There are no requirements. This is like that we have that we need to respect one another and figure out what's working for us. And so that we believe that tool is a great tool to get to know families. What I want to remind you, one of the things we've heard, especially from Head Start, they've integrated parts of that into their own interview form. So it's a way, we believe that these are important questions to discuss. It's not that the form itself is magical. A lot about navigating, you know what, I love that one, navigating the website. You know what, there's a lot out there, and so it's going to take you a little time, to get familiar with it. And when Jessica talked about sort of the pick and choose piece of it, the more familiar you are with the website, the more you're going to be able to do it. And Carola, the more they get familiar with your website as well around that support tool.
Somebody mentioned exploring different ways of training and possibly partnering with other providers. And I think that's a great goal, is how can we spread this and leverage each other's resources?
Right. Okay, you know what? Continue to put those in. We are going to we're going to work with you in terms of having a way that we can get back to this whole group with some of the basic questions that you've all been asking and get you some resources to do that. This is an ongoing process. It does not end here today. So I get to sort of do a little closing with you. And this is one of the, I've used this PowerPoint slide a lot, and it says it's hard work. And so that I want you all to know that, first of all, I want to thank Jessica and the rest of the team for this fabulous training, because it's been hard work. I know that all of those videos that Jessica put together, thank you, Dr. Carola Oliva Olson, it's been hard work. And I also want to be honest with you, implementing the training will be hard work. It will be hard work. That we don't want to be so Pollyanna-ish as to think this is all easy. It is not. It is hard work. But I'll show you this next slide, which I love. So this is one of my favorite slides. And this is this little girl who was in the middle of her work and just conked out. And so one of the things that I believe about early childhood educators, and especially about all of us involved with POLE, that we may get tired out, but we stick in it. You know, it's like she didn't go back to her mat or her cot. She stayed right there. And so that we are, we're in this together. And so that the fact that I know it's hard, it's going to be tiring, but I really trust and believe that all of you are going to stay in it. And so the next slide is another of my favorite pictures. And that is a picture of supporting one another. I like the fact that these are different age kids and the fact that they are helping one another. And I really do believe that this is the heart of implementing the language learning project. It really is supporting one another. It is hard work. It is hard work, but we can all do it together. So I want to thank all of you for having been a part of this. And I encourage you, as I keep saying this over and over, we are all now part of a community together, and we're going to support one another. You can be in touch with Jessica. You have all of our emails on there, and we're going to create this wonderful new community of learners in California that are going to continue this work.
I would like to take a moment to share a few words with all of you. Tengo unas palabras para compartir con ustedes. Often life can feel like it's flying by, time speeding before our eyes, even as memories are being built. Sometimes those memories are blessed with magical beings who spark our lives with bright, precious, and stellar moments. And sometimes we are the luckiest of beings, and we're treasured with a gift of a visionary, a mentor, a kind, brilliant, and extraordinary soul. This is Wit. This is you, Wit. We would not be here without your talent, unconditional love, and dedication to children, families, educators, leaders, and communities. Your strength, knowledge, experience, enthusiasm, and charisma have shown us what great human beings are all about. As you all know, he always starts with music, melody, smiles, and laughter. We know that music is great for the soul, and we know that Wit is great for the world. Te queremos mucho, Wit. Te agradecemos con todo nuestro corazón por todo lo que nos has enseñado. Eres un sol. We love you, Wit. We thank you with all our hearts for what you have taught us. You are the sun, the stars, and the moon. You are one of a kind. You are a gem. We owe this to you.
Thank you, Senor Wit. You're truly one of a kind. We thank you for all the work that you had been doing with us. We thank you for thinking outside of just our community and really thinking that what we can create here can really go beyond. Thank you for serving our families and our children. And this would not be possible without you. So you know that from the bottom of our heart, we really want to thank you for all that you do for us.
Yes, and thank you, Whit. I've learned so much from you since day one, and I want you to know that I appreciate everything I've learned. A lot of different things that will take forever to say during this session, but I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for everything that you do for us with the implementation of these professional learning sessions that we are now scaling throughout California, and for what we've done here in Fresno.
Yes, thank you, Whit. You are an honorary member, resident of Fresno. And Fresno Unified, we would not, none of this would have been possible without you, without your guidance, your passion, and your wisdom. So personally and from my heart, I love you and thank you.
And for me, I mean, it goes beyond professional Whit. I mean, we work together every single day, and it's the best time of my day sometimes. I mean, I look forward to working with you. I've learned so much from you professionally, but personally as well. And there's only so many people that I can count that have really formed who I am as a person. And I definitely count you as one of them. So I thank you. And I'm trying to say it without crying, but you know how much you mean to me. I hope you know how much you mean to me. And I try to show that to you, but it goes beyond this work. I mean, you changed the lives, as Dr. Olivosa said, the world is a better place because of you. So thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
And we were very happy to share him with all of you. And thank you for joining us. And now we're going to go ahead and continue. Jessica has a couple of announcements to make before we leave today. And once again, thank you for joining us.
So we do want to talk about our feedback form. We are going to create a networking list for all of you, of our participants from the training of trainers. So there is a space on the feedback form after you've entered your name and your email address to indicate whether you'd like your name and email address included on that list. It'll go out to our participants from these 3 sessions so that we all can build that community of learning and be able to contact one another, hear from different programs, and share what we're doing. So we'd love for you to allow us to share your information. And again, that is, it'll go out just to our participants here. And please indicate on the feedback form if you would like your name and your email address included on that list. Oh, and before I go, so this is the 3rd and final session of our training of trainers. Thank you for allowing me to do this work and be here with you all. And you will receive a certificate of completion after in a few weeks. We're going to reconcile all of the attendance and everyone's completed the feedback forms, and so you'll be receiving that. I'm going to pass it to Maria now for our final close.
Yes, and all I can say once again is thank you for joining us. We hope that the sessions were helpful. Please reach out to us if you have any questions. We are collecting all the questions, and we'll be providing answers, and that will be sent through email. So once again, thank you for joining us, and have a great rest of the day. And let's go out there and support our young dual language learners.